What if science went too far and monsters were born? Imagine experiments so dangerous they should never have existed. Yet, 10 times in history, scientists accidentally created creatures that defied nature itself. From laboratories turning into nightmares, to life forms evolving faster than anyone could control. These are not myths. These are true stories of human curiosity gone terrifyingly wrong. Stay with us, because every second reveals a new horror. And by the end, you will question, what if it happens again? Watch closely, do not blink, and make sure you see every single shocking creation. Click play, if you dare. The laboratory was silent, except for the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Dr. Evelyn Harper adjusted her goggles and peered into the glass chamber. A small creature stirred inside, its translucent skin revealing veins like tangled wires. She had not expected it to move so quickly. A shiver ran down her spine. The creature hissed, a wet, gurgling sound that echoed off the sterile walls. Evelyn's heart thumped against her ribs, each beat louder than the last. It had only been hours since she injected the experimental serum. Its eyes, too large and too dark, fixed on her with unnatural intelligence. A metallic clang behind her made her jump. The laboratory door had locked itself. She reached for the emergency override, but her fingers trembled. Suddenly, the creature lunged. Evelyn stumbled backward, knocking over a tray of sharp instruments. Glass shattered, sending shards skittering across the floor. She could hear its claws scrape against the tile. Sweat ran down her forehead, stinging her eyes. It was changing again, growing, mutating before her eyes. Its skin split in patches, revealing a network of glowing, pulsating veins. A guttural roar filled the room, vibrating through her bones. Evelyn realized she was not dealing with an animal, nor a human. It was something in between, and it was learning. Her breath came in ragged gasps. A strange odor filled the air, a mix of metal and decay. She tried to calm herself, rationalize, convince herself it was just an anomaly. But the way it mirrored her movements, its eyes tracking her every step, told a different story. The lights flickered, casting dancing shadows across the walls. One shadow looked alive, stretching and twisting in impossible ways. The creature screeched again, and the sound made her teeth ache. Her fingers found the override. She pressed it, praying. Nothing happened. A hiss, low and menacing, right behind her. Evelyn spun around, but the chamber was empty. Then she saw it. A shadow moved independently from the creature, creeping along the walls. It whispered, though there were no lips to speak. Her blood ran cold. This was not an experiment she could control. The floor vibrated underfoot as the creature slammed against the glass. Cracks spiderwebbed outward, tiny fissures turning into deep, threatening lines. Evelyn backed away, her mind racing for an escape plan. But the laboratory had become a cage, and she was not alone. The creature's form shimmered, morphing into something she could not name. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But where could she run? The walls themselves seemed to pulse with life. A low growl reverberated from the shadows, closer than before. Her hands found a scalpel on the floor, trembling violently. The creature lunged again, faster this time, smarter this time. Evelyn raised the scalpel, but froze. It was already there, inches from her face, studying her. Its eyes glowed brighter, almost hypnotic. A wave of nausea hit her. She realized she had stepped into something far bigger than science. Something monstrous. And it was not done evolving. Evelyn stumbled backward, her foot catching on a fallen chair. She crashed to the floor, pain shooting through her ankle. The creature hovered above her, its form shifting like liquid shadow. Its glowing eyes burned into hers, unblinking, intelligent, malevolent. A sharp smell of ozone and burning filled the air. Something in the shadows moved, another shape, smaller, but no less terrifying. It whispered again, words she could not understand, yet felt in her bones. Panic clawed at her throat. She scrambled toward the exit, dragging her injured leg. The lights flickered violently, plunging the lab into brief darkness. When they returned, the creature had multiplied, or perhaps it always had been many. Tentacle-like limbs reached from every corner, sliding along walls, ceiling, and floor. A guttural chorus of hissing and growling surrounded her. Evelyn's mind raced. Every experiment, every caution, every rule she had learned screamed that this was wrong. This was not science anymore. It was survival. Her hand brushed the emergency hatch. She yanked it open and tried to crawl through. Something cold and wet wrapped around her ankle. She screamed, kicking wildly, but the grip only tightened. Her heart pounded as the creature pulled her back into the lab. She slammed against the floor, gasping for air, sweat and blood mixing on her skin. Its shadowy forms pressed closer, indistinct yet horrifyingly real. A high-pitched screech echoed in her ears, disorienting her. Evelyn could see the serum she had created glowing faintly on the floor, pulsing like a heartbeat. She realized, with mounting terror, that the serum had not only altered the creature, it had altered everything in the room. The shadows writhed, whispering, shifting, alive. She tried to crawl again, dragging herself toward the hatch, toward anything resembling escape. The creature's voice, or something like it, reverberated in her mind. "You created us. You cannot leave." Her vision blurred, the edges of reality bending around the laboratory. She knew that even if she escaped physically, the monsters would follow her, inside her mind. The walls moaned and pulsated, the lights shattering in a symphony of sparks and smoke. The temperature dropped suddenly, icy tendrils crawling along her skin. Her breath came in foggy puffs, heart hammering, fear rising to a point of unbearable pressure. Then, the serum itself began to react violently, bubbling and emitting a strange, eerie glow. The creature shrieked, a sound that was both triumphant and agonized. Evelyn realized too late that she had unleashed something permanent, something that would not stop, something that was no longer confined to the laboratory walls. And in that moment, she understood. She had become part of the experiment. Evelyn's vision swirled, the laboratory twisting into impossible angles. Shadows stretched like living ink, crawling over every surface. The creatures multiplied, sprouting limbs, eyes, and teeth in horrifying symmetry. The glow from the serum bathed the room in an unholy light. It reflected off the creatures, making them shimmer and shift like liquid nightmares. A deafening roar shook the ceiling, dust and debris raining down around her. Evelyn tried to scream, but her voice caught in her throat. She crawled, desperate, toward the shattered exit. Every step felt like wading through quicksand. Tentacles lashed at her from all directions, gripping, pulling, testing her strength. Her hands scraped against broken glass, cutting deep into her palms. The creatures hissed in unison, a sound that pierced her mind and heart alike. She could feel them inside her thoughts, probing, understanding. It was no longer a chase. It was a hunt. Her ankle gave out. She fell hard onto the floor, the serum puddle spreading beneath her like a living stain. The creatures hovered above, their forms flickering between humanoid and monstrous. One leaned close, its eyes glowing brighter than ever, almost human, but horribly wrong. It whispered, "You want to play God? Now, you belong to us." Panic surged. Her hands scrabbled at the hatch, at anything that could give her escape. Suddenly, the serum exploded, a wave of glowing liquid surging across the room. The creatures shrieked, their forms expanding, merging, splitting. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, pulsing with the serum's energy. Evelyn realized she could not run. She could not fight. Every instinct screamed surrender or death. And then she saw it, an eye, enormous, glowing, staring at her from the center of the mass. It was intelligent, aware, ancient, and it had been born from her own hands. Her vision blurred with tears, fear, and disbelief. She whispered to herself, "I created a monster." But it was not one monster. It was 10, no, 100, maybe infinite. And it was just the beginning. Evelyn struggled to her knees, her body trembling uncontrollably. The glowing mass shifted again, forming shapes she could not comprehend. Tentacles, claws, and eyes melded together, twisting in patterns that defied logic. The roar of the laboratory intensified, a symphony of pain, anger, and life. She could feel the serum pulsing under her skin, a strange warmth spreading through her veins. It was not just in the room. It was in her. The creatures, no, the entity was growing beyond walls, beyond reason. It seeped into the vents, the floor cracks, the ceiling beams. Evelyn's mind screamed. Her thoughts scattered, fragmented by whispers from every direction. The lights flickered one last time, plunging the lab into near darkness. When they returned, the entity had grown taller than the ceiling. Its form now loomed over her like a living shadow of nightmares. Eyes blinked open across its body, hundreds, thousands all staring. Some eyes looked familiar, almost human, reflecting her own fear. It whispered in 1,000 voices at once. "You cannot stop us. You created us. Your world is ours now." Evelyn's hands shook as she tried to crawl, trying to put distance between herself and the living nightmare. But the floor beneath her rippled like water. The serum had merged with the concrete, spreading like roots into the city beyond. A low, vibrating hum began to emanate from the walls. She realized the creatures were not just confined to the lab. They were connected everywhere, waiting. Her phone lay shattered on the floor, the screen flickering with static. She pressed it to her ear, hoping for some human voice, some reassurance. Static, and then a whisper. From a phone, from the shadows, from herself. "We are here." The sound came from every corner, from every device, from the very air. Evelyn screamed, the sound swallowed by the entity. The walls began to bend outward, stretching impossibly, revealing glimpses of the world outside. Streets empty, cars abandoned, lights flickering. It had begun spreading beyond the lab. The serum, the creatures, the nightmares, they were unstoppable. Evelyn realized that in trying to push the boundaries of science, she had opened a door the world was not ready to close. And the entity was patient, intelligent, and hungry. It was waiting, and it had only just begun. Evelyn crawled toward the hatch, her body screaming in pain. But the floor itself was alive, pulsing and shifting under her weight. The entity's mass stretched through the walls, the ceiling, even the ventilation system. She could hear distant sirens outside, but no people. Only silence. The creatures were already in the streets. Glowing eyes flickered behind shattered windows. Cars twisted like metal sculptures, abandoned and contorted. The serum had seeped into the water, into the air, into the soil. It was spreading. Evelyn tried to scream, but her voice caught in her throat. A shadow detached from the main mass and hovered before her. It was taller than a building, its body constantly shifting, folding in on itself. Eyes blinked across its surface, hundreds, then thousands, then infinite. It whispered directly into her mind. "Your world is ours." Panic surged, adrenaline and terror mixing into a paralyzing storm. She realized escape was impossible. Every instinct told her to run. Every rational thought told her to fight. But nothing mattered. The entity pulsed, a heartbeat that shook the city. Buildings trembled, glass rained down from the sky. The streets twisted, folding in on themselves like paper. Evelyn looked up, and for the first time, she saw the true scale. The creatures had merged into one consciousness, one mind, one unstoppable force. And it was aware. It scanned the horizon, sensing, learning, evolving. Every living thing became a part of it, or a target. Her hands were shaking, blood running down her arms, eyes wide with horror. She whispered to herself, a tremor in her voice. "I created a monster. I created the end." The entity's mass surged forward, spilling into the city like a black tide. Lights flickered out, screams echoed in the distance, and the world itself seemed to recoil. Evelyn's last thought, as the shadow enveloped her completely, was a single, chilling truth. Humanity had crossed the line. and there was no coming back. Silence fell, thick and suffocating, over the city. Buildings smoldered, streets cracked, and the air smelled of ozone and decay. The entity had receded for now, but it was not gone. Shadows moved where no light should be. Eyes glimmered briefly in broken windows, disappearing when looked at directly. The serum had left traces everywhere, invisible but alive, pulsing beneath the surface. Evelyn lay unconscious on the lab floor, bruised and bloodied, but alive. Her mind raced with fragmented images, streets crawling with shadows, whispers in every sound, and the entity's voice echoing in her thoughts. When she finally opened her eyes, the lab was quiet. Too quiet. She sat up, trembling, listening. A low hum vibrated through the building, almost imperceptible. Then a faint whisper. "We are still here." Evelyn froze, heart hammering. The shadows shifted in the corners of the room. A single eye blinked open, glowing faintly, and vanished again. She realized with a shiver that the world had changed forever. The monsters were not confined to the lab. They were everywhere, and they were patient, waiting, evolving. The last thought that struck her was the undeniable truth. The line between humanity and monstrosity had been erased, and no one knew how long it would take before the monsters fully claimed the world. Outside, the wind carried faint whispers, like 1,000 voices just beyond hearing. And somewhere, deep in the shadows, the entity was smiling.